At 0630 hours, 6th April 1944, near Tilly-sur-Seulles, Normandy, France. The ground trembles under 40 tons of welded steel. Engine oil mingles with cordite smoke drifting across hedgerows. Still wet with morning dew, Churchill tank AG-22, registry number T68522, lurches forward at 8 miles per hour. German Panzer falls faster by half, dart between stone farmhouses, their 75mm guns tracking British infantry. Inside T68522, Sergeant Henry West grips controls slick with hydraulic fluid and sweat. Outside, his supporting riflemen scramble for cover as shells tear through apple orchards. West pushes the throttle harder. The Bedford twin-six engine roars, all 350 horsepower straining against a gradient the German tanks abandoned minutes earlier. "She'll make it," West mutters, not for himself, but for the machine everyone called obsolete. The Panzers had laughed at Churchill tanks since 1942, but doctrine files and after-action reports told a different story, one the enemy was beginning to read. 0430 hours, 23rd October 1942, 15 kilometers west of El Alamein, Egypt. Dawn is still an hour away when Sergeant William Adams watches the Churchill Mark III column rumble past his position. The sound carries across sand, still cool from night. These tanks, fresh from Vauxhall Motors production lines, move at 9 miles per hour, half the speed of German Panzers already dug in across the ridge. Adams has read the intelligence summaries. German radio intercepts mock the Churchill as Churchmaus, the Churchmaus. Too slow to pursue, too awkward to maneuver, mounting a 6-pounder gun when Tigers carry 88 Quamith cannons. The technical specifications seem to confirm enemy assessment. Maximum speed, 15 mph on road, 8 mph cross country, armour thickness, 152 mph at best angles. Yet something in the morning silence suggests those numbers don't tell the complete operational story. As artillery begins registering targets, Adams watches the Churchills position themselves not for speed, but for angles of approach no other tank in theatre could manage. The first engagement report would reach Cairo by noon. Expected attrition rate, 40% within 72 hours, 11 hours, 20 of November 1942, outside Medjez El Bab, Tunisia. Desert sand kicks up in plumes thick enough to choke carburetors. Adams crouches behind volcanic rock watching German armour advance, Panzer IIIs and IVs moving with the confidence of superior mobility. Through binoculars he sees a German tank commander gesturing at the British Churchills, his dismissive wave captured in reconnaissance, photographs later filed as document TNAWO 201548. Stahlschildkröte, the intercept officer translates, steel tortoise. Adams doesn't respond. There's no time. The Panzers close at 20 miles per hour, their Maybach engines audible 3 kilometers out. His Churchill, registry T31847, creaks forward on coil spring bogies designed by Dr. H.E. Merritt at Woolwich Arsenal. The suspension struggles on broken ground, but the tank doesn't stop. Adams slaps the hull plating. "Give her power." The Churchill lumbers toward a 30-degree incline, the kind of gradient that makes panzer crews choose alternate routes. They begin climbing. Rock scrapes against track links. The Bedford engine howls. Germans watching from below suddenly stop laughing. Their own tanks can't follow this approach. The after-action summary filed 3 days later notes, enemy withdrew from position AA-47 after being outflanked by Churchill units via terrain previously assessed as impassable. 1430 hours, 16th December 1942, defensive positions south of Tabourba, Tunisia. The Churchill squadron rests on a ridgeline while crew chiefs check transmission oil and track tension. From this elevation, Adams hears German artillery firing 4 kilometers north, but not at them. Not yet. In London, War Office files marked Equipment Assessment, North Africa, accumulate on desks in Whitehall. The Churchill's reputation balances on a ledger. Production cost $9,000 per unit. Mechanical reliability questionable. Strategic value unproven. Field Marshal Montgomery's staff officers debate whether to request more American Shermans instead. But something is shifting in the intelligence summaries. German radio traffic, decoded at Bletchley Park, reveals changing tactical language. The word Churchmaus appears less frequently. New phrases emerge: Geländegängig, terrain capable; Panzerung beachten, note armor thickness. Adams stands beside T-31847, watching heat shimmer off the barrel of its 6-pounder gun. The desert air tastes of dust and engine exhaust. He doesn't care about reputation, he cares about the men inside. Driver mechanic Corporal James Webb, gunner Lance Corporal Peter Mills, radio operator Private David Clark. These names appear in unit rosters archived at the Imperial War Museum. The tank will climb hills enemy armour can't reach. The decision comes from brigade headquarters. Push forward at first light. The war of attrition had found an unexpected instrument. 05:45 hours, 20th January 1943, rocky terrain northeast of Kasserine, Tunisia. Cold wind cuts through ventilation slits in T-31847's hull as the tank advances into boulder fields and scrub pine. The turret rotates 30 degrees, its electro-hydraulic traverse mechanism humming. Inside, Adams studies a silk escape map marked with penciled grid coordinates. Intelligence reports Tiger tanks in the sector. Panzer Kampfwagen 6, mounting 80mm KWK-36 guns that can penetrate 120mm of armour at 1,000 metres. Churchill armour, 152 Maiden maximum, 89mm on turret sides. The mathematics favour the Germans. But Adams knows the equation has more variables than armour thickness and muzzle velocity. The radio crackles. Lieutenant Morrison's voice, calm but tight. Movement at grid reference 472839, multiple contacts. Adams peers through the periscope. 3 kilometres out, Tiger silhouettes appear. Boxy superstructures, long gun barrels, the unmistakable profile documented in recognition manuals. "Sir, we can't outrun them," Morrison states. Factual, not afraid. Adams understands. This isn't about speed, it's about positioning. "Find the gradient," he orders. The Churchill pivots, tracks grinding, heading toward a slope rising 45 degrees over 200 meters. Tigers begin maneuvering for firing angles, but they stop at the slope's base. Their weight-to-power ratio, 56 tons against 700 horsepower, makes steep climbs dangerous. The Churchill, lighter despite its appearance, begins ascending. Track tension holds. The Bedford engine screams but delivers. From the summit, the Churchill has angles the Tigers never anticipated. 12:10 hours, 6th of February 1943, 12 kilometers north of Spitler, Tunisia. The battle has escalated beyond initial projections. German forces, having observed Churchill performance over 6 weeks, adjust tactical assessments. Documents captured at Tunis in May 1943 reveal Wehrmacht training bulletins. Do not assume Churchill immobility. Vehicle demonstrates unexpected terrain capability. Adams watches T-31847 advance through a narrow wadi, rock walls rising 15 meters on both sides. This passage appears on German maps as unpassierbar für Panzer, impassable for armour. The Churchill fits with 3 meters clearance on each side. Enemy artillery has the range, shells detonating on ridgelines above, shrapnel ringing off hull plating. Inside, the crew works in practiced rhythm. Webb manages throttle and steering levers. Mills loads 6-pounder rounds, each weighing 7 kilograms. Clark monitors 3 radio frequencies simultaneously. The temperature inside climbs to 42 degrees Celsius despite ventilation fans. Sweat drips onto instruments. The tank smells of cordite, oil, and unwashed bodies. They don't stop. This time, survival isn't enough. The Churchill's role has evolved beyond expectations, recorded in initial deployment orders. It's proving worth in ways procurement committees never quantified. With a final surge, engine temperature reading 95 degrees Celsius, 5 below critical, the Churchill breaks through the Wadey's northern exit. German defensive positions lie exposed on the far side. The flanking manoeuvre succeeds where direct assault would have failed. The after-action report filed by Major T.P. Crowley notes simply, Churchill units accomplished objectives via unconventional routes, enemy withdrawing from secondary positions. 14:30 hours, 5th of March 1943, approaches to Marathline, Tunisia. Morning fog lingers in valleys as Churchill crews prepare for Operation Pugilist. T-31847 sits among 17 other Churchills, engines idling, waiting for movement orders. The mission isn't just about this tank anymore, it's about doctrine, about proving that heavy infantry tanks can operate offensively despite what pre-war planning documents assumed. Adams stands outside his vehicle checking track pins and return rollers. Each Churchill weighs 39 tons combat loaded. Each carries 84 rounds of 6-pounder ammunition, 9,450 rounds of 7.92 mm Baser machine gun ammunition, and fuel for 120 kilometers. These numbers appear in War Office supply requisition forms archived at Q. The men inside have become extensions of the machine. Webb knows the transmission's quirks. Second gear sticks unless you double clutch. Third gear winds above 1/800 RPM. Mills can load and fire 4 rounds per minute in good conditions, 3 when fatigued. Clark maintains radio contact even when antenna mounts shake loose from recoil vibration. They've learned the Churchill's language, the rattle that means track needs tensioning, the knock that signals a loose bogie wheel, the smell of overheated brake bands. There's no time for fear, Adams notes in a letter, home dated 7th March, preserved in family archives. Only action. Only the mechanical rhythm of war. The Churchill has become more than transport or weapons platform. It's become the space where these men exist, the steel that keeps them breathing, the machine that carries them through probability calculations that favour their death. 8:50 hours, 12th of April 1943, defensive engagement near Jebel Ghazi, Tunisia. They're outgunned. 3 Tiger tanks, their 88mm guns ranging to 3,000 metres, dominate the eastern approaches. The Churchill's 6-pounder has effective range of 1,000 metres against heavy armour. The mathematics are unforgiving. Adams feels the calculation in his chest as T-31847 manoeuvres through terrain mapped by Royal Engineers 3 days earlier. The Tigers fire. The sound arrives before conscious thought, a crack that compresses air in your lungs. The shell passes overhead, detonating 40 metres beyond. Rock fragments spray across the Churchill's engine deck. The tank doesn't stop. Adams knows the odds, has read the penetration tables issued by the School of Tank Technology. But he also knows terrain. The Churchill angles toward a ravine, too narrow for German tanks, a geological formation created by winter floods cutting through sandstone. The Tigers have speed and firepower. The Churchill has 150 mm of frontal armour and the ability to traverse ground larger tanks must avoid. They enter the ravine. Walls rise on both sides, creating a natural defensive position. The Tigers attempt pursuit, but their wider track spacing, 720 mm compared to the Churchill's 300 in Fieg Simitsmade, makes the approach impossible. German tank commanders, watching from observation points documented in captured position reports, realize they've been outmaneuvered not by speed or firepower but by geometry and determination. The engagement summary filed by Captain R.J. Henderson, 51st Royal Tank Regiment, records: enemy armour withdrew after flanking attempt, failed due to terrain restrictions. No Churchill losses. Sometimes the equation balances not on the variables you expect, but on the ones you exploit. 15:30 hours, 7th of May, 1943. Final operations before Tunis falls, Tunisia. Strategy has evolved. The Churchill, once considered suitable only for infantry support and breakthrough operations, now appears in tactical planning documents with expanded roles. German commanders, their assessments recorded in situation reports found in captured headquarters, have stopped dismissing British heavy tanks. Wehrmacht Tactical Bulletin 4740, dated 3. May, warns: Churchill Panzer zeigt unerwartete Geländefähigkeit, Standardabwehrtaktiken überdenken. Churchill tank shows unexpected terrain capability. Reconsider standard defence tactics. The British have learned how to employ their slow, heavily armoured tanks. Not in pursuit operations where speed matters, but in approaches where terrain becomes the deciding factor. Breaking fixed positions, climbing to observation points, operating in boulder fields and steep wadis where German armour loses its mobility advantage. Adams watches the tactical evolution from inside T-31847. The tank is no longer just a tool. It's become a lesson in operational adaptation, a demonstration that pre-war assumptions about armour doctrine required revision under combat conditions. The Churchill may not win races, but in North African terrain, mountains, ravines, rocky slopes, narrow passes, it has proven effective beyond initial procurement expectations. By the time Tunis falls on 13th of May 1943, the Churchill has transformed from slow target to terrain specialist in both Allied and Axis operational assessments. The tank that couldn't keep pace had learned to fight battles where pace didn't matter. 06 hours, 16th June 1943, approaches to Mount Etna region, Sicily. T-31847 sits at the base of a slope that rises 53 degrees over 400 metres. The objective, a German observation post controlling supply routes to Catania, occupies terrain previously classified as inaccessible to armour in staff planning documents. Adams studies the gradient through his periscope. Every calculation suggests this climb is impossible. The Churchill's power-to-weight ratio, 9 horsepower per ton, barely meets requirements for such grades. Track adhesion on volcanic rock remains uncertain. Engine cooling at maximum load could fail, but intelligence reports show German artillery ranging from that position destroyed 2 supply convoys yesterday. 16 men killed. 40 tons of ammunition lost. The observation post must be eliminated. Adams keys his radio. All stations, this is Tango 3, beginning ascent. The Churchill's engine note changes as Webb throttles up to maximum RPM. All 350 horsepower of the Bedford Twin-6 engine engages. The tank lurches forward, rock chips fly from under tracks. The nose rises. Inside, the crew braces against a floor tilting to angles that make movement difficult. Every gauge redlines. Oil pressure, coolant temperature, transmission heat. The smell of hot metal fills the crew compartment. German observers watch from above. Their radio traffic intercepted and logged at Signals Intelligence Station, Malta. Britischer Panzer versucht den Aufstieg. Unmöglich. British tank attempting ascent. Impossible. The Churchill climbs metre by metre, track plates finding purchase on volcanic stone. The engine screams but holds. Halfway up, a track throws a pin. The tank stops. Webb reverses, repositions, finds new line. They climb again. The German observers stop transmitting. They're watching something they didn't believe possible. 11:15 hours, 2 July 1943, final approach to German defensive line, eastern Sicily. The Churchill squadron, 9 tanks operational, 4 in mechanical reserve, advances toward positions that have held for 2 weeks. This is the culmination of lessons learned across North Africa, Tunisia, and now Sicily. The machines that were too slow have become instruments of persistence. Adams commands from T31847, positioned center of the formation. Around him, other Churchills, T68501, T68509, T31892, their registry numbers recorded in war diaries archived at Bovington Tank Museum, maneuver through terrain that channels faster tanks into kill zones. German defensive planning assumed British armour would use valley approaches, where Park 40 anti-tank guns have overlapping fields of fire. The Churchills climb the ridges instead. It's exhausting work. Crews have been operational for 9 hours. Fatigue degrades reaction time, blurs vision, makes simple tasks difficult. But they continue. The Churchills' reliability, initially questioned in procurement reviews, has proven adequate. Mechanical failure rate, 12% per 100 kilometers in Sicily, compared to 8% for Shermans, but 18% for Crusader tanks. The numbers appear in War Office Report WO201645, AFV Performance Assessment, Mediterranean Theatre. Each tank carries its crew through calculations of probability and endurance. The Germans are relentless, but their defensive plan assumed assumptions about British armour capability that no longer hold. The Churchills push forward, not with dramatic breakthrough, but with mechanical persistence. They climb grades, absorb hits, return fire, advance another 100 meters. By 14 hours, German forces begin withdrawing from secondary positions. Not because they're outgunned, they're not, but because their defensive geometry has been compromised by tanks operating where defensive plans assumed no tanks could go. The after-action summary records: objectives secured, Churchill losses, 2 mechanical, 1 combat damage, all crews recovered. 16:30 hours, 3rd of August 1943, consolidation positions near Catania, Sicily. The battle is won, though fighting continues in other sectors. T31847 sits on a hillside overlooking the coastal plain, its engine finally silent after weeks of continuous operations. Adams stands beside the tank, running his hand along hull plating scarred by shell fragments and small arms fire. Around him, the evidence of combat: destroyed German equipment, abandoned positions, shell craters in volcanic soil. The silence after battle feels heavier than the noise during. The Churchill tank, dismissed in 1942 as slow, awkward, unsuitable for mobile warfare, has written its own operational history. Not through speed or firepower, but through the stubborn mathematics of armour thickness, terrain capability, and crew endurance. German situation reports captured at Messina acknowledge what frontline troops learned. Churchill Panzer in schwerem Gelände als gefährlich einzustufen. Churchill tanks to be classified as dangerous in difficult terrain. The assessment reached Wehrmacht tactical schools by September 1943, informing defensive planning for Italy and Northwest Europe. Adams thinks about the crews who didn't return. Driver-mechanic Corporal Ronald Smith, killed when T68509 took an 88-metre round through the turret ring. Gunner Sergeant William Foster died of wounds after T31892 struck a mine. Their names appear on casualty reports filed with meticulous bureaucratic precision, each death recorded, each loss accounting for. The Churchill wasn't perfect. Its 6-pounder gun remained underpowered compared to German 88mm weapons. Its speed limited pursuit operations. Mechanical complexity caused maintenance challenges. But in the specific tactical circumstances of Mediterranean theatre, mountains, narrow roads, steep approaches, it proved effective beyond initial expectations. They dismissed it, Adams says quietly to no one, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. But they learned. 9. Browse, 5th August 1943, assembly areas near Syracuse, Sicily. Victory is formal now, documented in operational summaries flowing from field headquarters to London. The Churchill squadron rolls through liberated streets, its tanks leaving deep impressions in cobblestones worn by centuries of traffic. Civilians wave from doorways, soldiers smile, exhausted. But inside T31847 there's no celebration. Adams and his crew perform post-operation maintenance with the same methodical attention they've maintained since El Alamein: oil changes, track tension checks, bogey wheel inspection, radio calibration. The routine continues because the machine continues, and the machine continues because the routine holds. War Office analysts compile performance data. Churchill tanks in Sicily campaign, 147 deployed, 31 combat losses, 28 mechanical failures, operational availability 76% over 45-day period. The numbers translate to survival rates, to men who climbed back into tanks each morning, knowing probability and choosing to proceed anyway. Production records from Vauxhall Motors, archived at the British Motor Industry Heritage Trust, show 5,640 Churchill tanks manufactured by war's end. Not the largest production run. American M4 Shermans exceeded 49,000 units, but significant enough to matter in theatres where terrain favoured heavy armour over speed. The Churchill's reputation has transformed. Intelligence summaries and tactical assessments filed in autumn 1943 reflect the shift. What began as skepticism ended as operational doctrine. Use Churchill tanks in terrain that favours armour and climbing ability over speed and manoeuvrability. The machine vindicated not through propaganda, but through logged performance, through battle reports filed by men who survived, because 150 mm of armour stopped shells that would have penetrated lighter vehicles. 18 hours, 12th August 1943, maintenance depot outside Palermo, Sicily. Adams watches T31847 roll toward the depot's vehicle park, its silhouette sharp against Mediterranean sunset. The tank will be refitted, crews rotated, mechanical issues addressed, then it will return to service, likely in the Italian campaign now being planned in Allied headquarters. The Churchill's legacy is still being written. It will operate in Italy's mountains, climb the slopes at Monte Cassino, support infantry through the Gothic line. Later, in 1944, it will prove its worth again in Normandy's hedgerows, at Hill 112, in the Reichswald forest. Specialised variants will emerge: Churchill Crocodile with flamethrower, Churchill Avery with 290mm petard mortar, Churchill Arc bridge layer. The basic platform, initially dismissed, will become foundation for innovation. But that's future history. Tonight, Adams thinks only about the immediate past, about Churchill's climbing slopes that shouldn't have been possible, about crews who learned their machine's language and spoke it fluently enough to survive, about German tactical assessments that shifted from mockery to respect. The tank was slow. This fact remains indisputable, recorded in every specification sheet and performance trial. But speed proved less decisive than planners assumed. In terrain that punished fast-moving armour, the Churchill found its purpose, not as the tank anyone wanted, but as the tank-specific circumstances required. War Office File WO201548, closed in December 1945, contains a single-line assessment from the Director of Armoured Fighting Vehicles. Churchill: initial skepticism unwarranted. Operational performance exceeded procurement expectations. The file closed without ceremony. The numbers had already rewritten doctrine. The tank everyone dismissed became the tank nobody forgot.